Smile 90.4 FM. The honest truth.
Met Benito Vergatini.
Smile 90.4 FM.
Joining us this evening to share insights on how South Africa could ramp up its transition to clean energy and diversify its energy mix in a sustainable manner. And this as we gear up to observe the United Nations first International Day of Clean Energy, to be observed this coming Friday, the 26th of January. Is commercial head for Synapse Ultra at Rubicon, Dylan Schnetler. Mr. Schnetler, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Benito, and thanks for having me on.
It's clearly becoming so critical that there needs to be this transition, this breaking free from fossil fuels. And with the UN's first International Day of Clean Energy, it certainly lays out that particular claim and for the future to be a lot more sustainable than it currently is, Dylan.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And it's certainly an interesting time. And I think an opportunity for many people to see what sort of meaningful part they can play in that transition.
Yeah. And why do you think it's so important for South Africa to be a part of this to transition to clean energy?
I think one thing is to ensure that we've got a competitive edge as a country. That would be one part of it, to ensure that, that fundamentally our power comes from a sustainable and cost-effective source. And then I think the other thing is with renewable is that it's a hybrid. It creates a hybrid, more robust method of creating and using power. So those are the two aspects, and we as a country want to stay competitive. And then I think there's also creating power from a source that is clean and it's good for our environment.
And we certainly have those sources in abundance here in South Africa. If we look at the availability of sunlight throughout the year, and particularly along the coastal regions. And my word, yesterday we got a reminder of the power of the wind. So we have ample natural resources. Yeah,
you're 100% right. And I think that's where we're sitting in a good position. We've got great irradiance from the sun. We've got good wind and we've got good hydro. So from a renewable perspective, we're sitting in a good position to take advantage of those different elements that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, the transition away from the fossil fuels and our dependence on coal is not ever going to happen overnight. And as you spoke of that hybrid model earlier in relation to renewable energy, I suspect a similar approach will be a part of the South African energy mix during this transition. How do we ensure that the transition is a smooth one as well towards more clean energy sources?
I think this is where private sector's also has got an important part to play. So individuals and the private sector, so both commercially as well as private residences, is that, if you are using power, be it a home or a small, medium or large commercial business, you can diversify in essence from the grid. So you're not unclipping from the grid. You're just putting in place power plants that are clean, cost effective, will give you a good return. But then on top of that, you in essence are making a contribution to the grid, because currently our grid's got a shortfall. That's why we've got load shedding, is because we cannot supply our country with enough power. So when the private sector, in one form or the other, puts any member from the private sector invests in a renewable power plant for their roof, then what they're doing is they're contributing in a positive way, not only to clean energy initiatives, but also to addressing the shortfall of the grid. So that's certainly, we feel is a fantastic way to make a positive contribution to our country.
And that's also, that's already happening, as you're well aware, Dylan, and I'm sure that also points to a future model of what South Africa's energy would look like. Gone are the days of all our energy being monopolized by a utility such as Eskom. You spoke of the private sector taking initiative. So this decentralized approach seems to be the way forward and may be able to ameliorate some of those challenges that we may encounter during the transition.
That's correct, and it is happening. I suppose in some ways it's not happening fast enough because we're still experiencing load shedding, but it is happening. But government's also taking advantage of the private sector money, because you've got IPPs that are investing in our country, and so Eskom is in essence purchasing power from the private sector to on-sell to their clients. So it is happening, and without a shadow of doubt will continue to happen for the foreseeable future. I guess it's just the speed at which it happens. I think something else important to mention is that government is also starting to play a proactive role, and they must be commended for that. Homeowners can get a tax rebate in essence of 15,000 Rand on solar panels at the end of the year just for investing in a solar system for their home. So that's also, these are all small initiatives that at the end of the day will make a positive contribution to our grid.
You mentioned it earlier, and I think it's an important one and cannot be further underscored, particularly when one talks about a just transition, when one speaks about South Africa's competitive edge, is that partnership, that collaboration between all of the stakeholders involved, Dylan.
Exactly right. I mean, it's really important that we, as a country, we're competing on a global stage often when it comes to manufacture, agriculture, and all these things need power, and they need to buy power at a competitive rate. If they buy power at a competitive rate, they can make their goods more competitively and supply to the global market more competitively. So fundamentally, we need a reliable power source that doesn't load shed, and we need our consumers and our different companies across the country to be buying power at a competitive rate so that they're competitive, and that creates jobs at the end of the day. So, yeah, it's a very important part of the equation.
Lastly, Dylan, with Friday being the UN's first International Day of Clean Energy, I see the organization is also utilizing that to further advance the work of the International Renewable Energy Agency. Is South Africa associated or working alongside that agency as well to assist it with its transition?
They are involved, and they've made commitments to the UN. So we've got quite stiff commitments to meet by 2030, but quietly confident that we can get there. But I think everybody's got a part to play, and I think that's what's important, is that it's not just government, it's people having the initiative to look into what opportunities they can take to use their money to positively contribute to our grid. And I think that's another thing that's I guess is fantastic, is that today there are systems out there, specifically solar systems for the private sector, as well as small to medium-sized commercial businesses. There are systems out there that'll deliver on customer expectations. That'll give you fantastic return on investment, and on top of that will alleviate load shedding. So I think that the key thing is, it's one thing for government to make those commitments and to have the desire to get there, but ultimately everybody can play a role. And I think there's never been a time where we could do that, and at the same time get a fantastic return on our investment.
Commercial head for Synapse Ultra at Rubicon, Dylan Schnetler.